The morning sky over New York City shimmered like oil on water. The effect lasted only seconds before the first Galactic hegemony warship broke through the atmospheric barrier, its crystalline hull casting rainbow refractions across the Manhattan skyline. Within minutes, 12 more ships emerged, each one large enough to cast multiple city blocks into shadow. News networks worldwide interrupted their broadcasts as similar ships appeared over every major city on Earth. The Chinese government reported 20 ships over Beijing. The Russians counted 15 above Moscow, and London's sky hosted 10 of the massive vessels. Social media exploded with videos of the ship's crystalline structures catching the sun, creating spectacular and terrifying light shows that put the Northern Lights to shame. At exactly 9:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, every screen on Earth, from Times Square billboards to smartphones in rural Mongolia, flickered to life with the same image. Admiral Kexthor of the Galactic hegemony stood before humanity, 12 feet tall and composed of what appeared to be living crystal. Their translucent form pulsed with internal light as they spoke, their words automatically translating into every known human language. People of Earth, the Admiral's voice resonated with harmonics that made windows vibrate. Your planet has been assessed and found worthy of integration into the Galactic hegemony. Your species has achieved sufficient technological advancement to be of use. You will provide annual tribute of 10% of your planet's total economic output, beginning one standard galactic year from this moment. The UN Security Council, already in emergency session, watched as Admiral Kexthor continued their broadcast. To demonstrate the futility of resistance and the benevolence of compliance, we offer a demonstration. The Admiral raised what might have been an arm, though it looked more like a crystalline branch catching light. Every human eye turned skyward, as the moon, Earth's constant companion for billions of years, changed color. The transformation started at its southern pole and swept northward like a wave, turning the familiar gray surface to a deep royal purple. The color held for exactly 1 hour before fading back to normal, leaving behind a planet of stunned observers and terrified scientists who couldn't begin to explain the technology required for such a display. Your military forces have already been analyzed and found inadequate. Kexthor continued, their form shifting colors as they spoke. Your most powerful weapons would not scratch our smallest vessel. Your most advanced computers are toys compared to our navigational systems. Your resistance would be less than an inconvenience. Inside the UN Security Council chamber, representatives from the world's most powerful nations sat in stunned silence. The American representative, Jennifer Hayes, gripped her desk until her knuckles turned white. The Chinese delegate had removed his glasses and was cleaning them for the third time, a nervous habit that spoke volumes about the situation's gravity. We are not unreasonable. The Admiral's voice softened, though the harmonics still made teeth ache. You have 1 full galactic year to prepare your first tribute. Our observers will remain in orbit to monitor your progress and provide technical specifications for resource preparation. Those who serve the hegemony well often find themselves rewarded with technological gifts that advance their development by centuries. The broadcast ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving behind a planet in turmoil. Stock markets worldwide suspended trading as economic systems reeled from the implications. Military commands went to their highest alert status, though the Admiral's words about their ineffectiveness rang all too true. In the Security Council chamber, Secretary General Torres finally broke the silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice steady despite the circumstances, "we face the most significant decision in human history. We can submit and become another vassal species, or..." He let the alternative hang in the air, unspoken because no one could see a viable option. No one in that room could have guessed that at that very moment, Dr. Amanda Mitchell was racing from her underground laboratory toward New York, carrying data that would offer humanity a third choice: one that would change the very nature of human existence. The Security Council guards didn't want to let Dr. Amanda Mitchell into the building. She understood their caution. With alien ships hovering above every major city, anyone could be a threat. But she had neither the time nor the patience for standard protocols. "Call Secretary Hayes," she demanded, her lab coat still bearing scorch marks from that morning's experiment. "Jennifer Hayes. Tell her Dr. Mitchell from Project Cronus is here. She'll understand." The guards exchanged glances, but one made the call. Within minutes, they were escorting her through the building's labyrinthine corridors. Inside the council chamber, the world's most powerful people were arguing about surrender terms. The Russian representative was insisting they could fight, while the British ambassador calculated how many millions would die in such an attempt. Dr. Mitchell burst through the doors, interrupting the Chinese representative mid-sentence. "We don't have to fight them," she announced, plugging a quantum drive into the chamber's holographic display system. "And we don't have to submit." The room erupted in protests until Secretary Hayes stood up. "Let her speak," Hayes commanded. "Dr. Mitchell leads one of our most classified research projects. If she's here, it's important." The secretary's words carried weight. She'd been the one who'd secretly funded Project Cronus, when others had called it a waste of resources. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a secured underground facility deep beneath the New Mexico desert. While every other nation raced to master space, Dr. Mitchell began. A small team of youths pursued a different path. "We ask ourselves, why travel through space when you could travel through time?" Murmurs of disbelief filled the chamber. The French representative actually laughed. Mitchell ignored them all, keying in a sequence on her tablet. The display shifted to show a laboratory, where a simple coffee cup sat on a platform. "This was recorded this morning," she said. The cup on screen began to shimmer, its edges becoming blurry. Then, to the astonishment of everyone present, it vanished. "The cup didn't disappear," Mitchell explained. "It moved 5 seconds into the future. Watch." Sure enough, the cup reappeared exactly where it had been. "Impossible," the Russian representative breathed. But he, like everyone else, couldn't deny what they'd seen. "The Empire out there." Mitchell pointed upward. "They've mastered space. They can turn the moon purple, and their ships could probably reduce our cities to ash. But they're still bound by time's arrow. They move through time just like everyone else, 1 second per second, forward only." She brought up another display, this one showing complex quantum equations. "We've discovered something extraordinary. Humans have a unique neural structure that makes us particularly suited to temporal manipulation. Where other species developed along lines that made them natural spacefarers, we evolved in a way that makes us time-sensitive." Secretary Hayes leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing, Doctor?" "I'm proposing we do what humanity does best. We adapt. We evolve. Instead of paying their tribute, we escape. Not through space, where they're unbeatable, but through time, where they can't follow." The chamber erupted again, but this time with questions rather than protests. Mitchell held up her hand. "The technology works. We've proven it on small scale. With proper resources and global cooperation, we could scale it up. Way up." "How far up?" the Secretary General asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. "Planetary scale," Mitchell replied. "We're going to move the entire Earth 5 minutes into the future and phase shift it, just enough to exist in a parallel temporal plane. They won't be able to touch us because, from their perspective, we won't even exist in the same time stream." Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Finally, Secretary Hayes spoke. "How long would it take? And what do you need?" Dr. Mitchell's eyes gleamed with determination. "Give me every resource you can spare, and I can have it ready before their tribute deadline. But we need to start now. Those ships up there, Their sensors might already be detecting temporal distortions from our tests. The world transformed overnight. On the surface, nations made a show of cataloging resources for the Empire's tribute. Below ground, an unprecedented engineering project was taking shape. Dr. Mitchell's team had gone from 12 scientists to 12,000 in less than a week. The temporal displacement arrays need to form a perfect dodecahedron around the planet, she explained to the Joint Chiefs of Staff in a bunker deep beneath the Pentagon. We're building the primary nodes at both poles, with secondary arrays positioned along the Earth's magnetic field lines. Behind her, holographic displays showed construction progress at sites worldwide. The Russian military had already converted their largest missile factory into a temporal coil production facility. Chinese quantum computers, once dedicated to breaking encryption, now ran endless simulations of planetary-scale time shifts. European particle accelerators pushed their systems to the limit, creating the exotic matter needed for the arrays. But it was in Denver that everything nearly fell apart. "What do you mean?" The city shifted. Dr. Mitchell demanded, standing in the emergency command center. The screen showed chaos in downtown Denver, where a 20-block section of the city had suddenly vanished during a test of one of the smaller arrays. "It's gone, Doctor," her chief engineer reported. The temporal field was supposed to be contained to the test chamber, but something amplified it. We think the city's natural geological features created an unexpected resonance effect. For 5 terrifying minutes, a portion of Denver simply didn't exist. Then, just as suddenly, it reappeared. The buildings, people, even the birds in mid-flight, all returned exactly as they'd been. Only now, everyone in the affected area was telling the same story. They'd experienced 5 minutes of being somewhere else, somewhere they didn't have words to describe. "This is actually good news," Dr. Mitchell announced to the stunned command center. "We've proven large-scale temporal displacement works. The people returned safely, and most importantly, she pulled up readings from the Empire's observer ships in orbit. Their sensors didn't detect a thing. The shift was too quick for their technology to register. The Denver incident changed everything. Funding, already substantial, became virtually unlimited. Military personnel worldwide were quietly reassigned to project sites, and in orbit, the Empire's observers continued their scans, completely unaware that their tribute processing facilities were actually temporal array construction sites. Dr. Mitchell worked around the clock, her team racing against both the tribute deadline and the laws of physics themselves. Each test revealed new challenges, cascade failures that could tear apart the fabric of space-time, quantum entanglement issues that threatened to scatter the planet's mass across multiple dimensions, and the ever-present risk of detection. "The arrays are operating at 30% capacity," she reported to the UN Security Council 1 month into the project. "But we've hit a problem." She brought up a simulation showing the Earth surrounded by a web of temporal energy. "The field has to envelop the entire planet simultaneously. If we're off by even a microsecond, the temporal shear could tear the Earth apart." Secretary Hayes, who'd become the project's strongest advocate, leaned forward. "What do you need?" "We need to synchronize every array using the planet's magnetic field as a conductor. It's never been done before. The power requirements are—" Mitchell paused, then continued, "They're beyond anything we've ever attempted." "Can it be done?" the Secretary General asked. Mitchell's response was interrupted by an alert. One of the Empire's ships had changed orbit, moving to a position directly over the North Pole array. On screen, its crystalline structure seemed to shimmer with increased activity. "They're scanning something," the military advisor announced. "The energy signature from the last test must have been stronger than we thought." Dr. Mitchell looked at the assembled leaders, her expression grim but determined. "We can do this, but we need to move faster, much faster, because if they figure out what we're really building, She let the implications hang in the air. The race against time had just become a sprint. Admiral Kixthor's investigation team arrived without warning at the Antarctic Research Station. 3 crystalline beings, each 9 feet tall, materialized inside the facility's main atrium, their bodies refracting the harsh polar light into rainbow cascades across the walls. Dr. Mitchell, who'd been called in from the North Pole site, fought to keep her expression neutral. Behind her, engineers scrambled to activate the holographic camouflage systems they'd installed for exactly this scenario. As the Imperial investigators' crystal forms shifted through colors of deep purple and blue, the massive temporal array behind the false wall transformed into the appearance of an enormous resource processing plant. Our sensors detected unusual energy signatures, the lead investigator announced, their voice creating harmonics that made the station's windows vibrate. Explain. Of course, Mitchell replied, gesturing to the holographic displays that had been carefully crafted for this moment. We're testing new methods of resource refinement to meet your tribute requirements. The process requires significant energy expenditure. She held her breath, hoping the carefully constructed lie would hold. The investigators moved through the facility like living prisms, their bodies casting shifting patterns of light as they examined everything. One of them approached what appeared to be a standard processing vat, but was actually a temporal field generator. The engineer operating it, Captain Sarah Rodriguez, maintained her calm, even as sweat beaded on her forehead. Demonstrate, the lead investigator commanded. Mitchell's heart nearly stopped, but they'd prepared for this too. Rodriguez activated a sequence they'd rehearsed dozens of times, making the temporal generator appear to process raw materials into refined metals. The real process was happening at a quantum level. They were actually testing micro-scale time shifts, but the visual effect perfectly mimicked industrial processing. The deception seemed to be working, until one of the investigators turned their crystalline head toward the facility's power core. Your energy consumption exceeds standard processing requirements by a factor of 7. Earth's technology is less efficient than Galactic standard, Mitchell explained quickly. We're using additional power to compensate for our primitive methods. She silently thanked the intelligence teams who'd prepared these cover stories. The lead investigator moved to speak again, but paused as their forms suddenly flickered with bright green pulses. All 3 crystalline beings turned toward the eastern wall, directly where the main temporal coil was hidden. There, the second investigator said, another anomaly. Mitchell's blood ran cold. The temporal field must have fluctuated despite their dampening measures. She watched in horror as the investigators moved toward the wall, their bodies resonating with the hidden technology behind it. Then Captain Rodriguez did something either brilliant or insane. She dropped her coffee mug. The ceramic cup shattered on the metal floor with a crash that echoed through the chamber. As the investigators turned toward the sound, Rodriguez stumbled forward, apologizing profusely while cleaning up the mess. Her hand, hidden from the Imperial's view, pressed an emergency override that sent a massive power surge through the facility systems. Alarms blared. Emergency lights flashed. Containment breach in Processing Sector 7. The facility's AI announced, following the prepared emergency protocol. All personnel evacuate immediately. A malfunction, Mitchell announced, trying to sound appropriately concerned and embarrassed. Our primitive technology. We must clear the area until it can be contained. The investigators' bodies pulsed with colors of irritation and contempt. Inefficient, primitive, wasteful, the lead investigator declared. You have much to learn from the Empire. With a final shimmer of disapproval, they teleported away. Once the all-clear was given, Mitchell slumped against a wall. That was too close, she breathed. Rodriguez nodded, still shaking. They almost found it. If they'd scanned that wall for another 30 seconds, "We need to move faster," Mitchell said, already pulling up communications with the other sites. "They're getting suspicious, and we're running out of time. Tell every team. No more tests. No more calibrations. We start full integration now." Above the station, the Imperial ships resumed their regular patrol pattern. But their sensors remained fixed on the facility below, watching, waiting for another anomaly that would confirm their growing suspicions. Global internet traffic reached historic levels as humanity prepared for their greatest gamble. Every social media platform buzzed, with speculation about the unusual aurora displays appearing at both poles, a side effect of the temporal arrays that Dr. Mitchell's team couldn't fully suppress. In her command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Mitchell stared at the worldwide network of temporal sensors. Red warning icons flashed across multiple locations. "Talk to me," she called out to her team. "What's happening with the field synchronization?" Dr. James Cooper, her lead field theorist, pulled up a holographic model of Earth's magnetic field. "We've got a problem," he announced, his voice tight with concern. "Solar activity is increasing. A massive solar flare just launched from the sun's surface. When it hits Earth's magnetosphere, it'll disrupt our entire synchronization network." Mitchell finished, running calculations in her head. "How long until impact?" 18 hours, Cooper replied. "And that's not all. Look at these readings from the Imperial fleet." The display shifted to show the crystalline ships in orbit. Their normal patrol patterns had changed. Now they were moving into a formation that military advisors said resembled combat positioning. Several ships had positioned themselves directly above major array sites. "They're running orbital bombardment drills," General Martinez reported from the military section. "But we all know they're not drills. They're warnings. They know something's wrong." Mitchell's quantum computer team chose that moment to report in. Dr. Sarah Wong's hologram appeared, her expression both excited and terrified. "We finished the timeline calculations," she announced. "You're not going to believe what we found." The main display filled with probability streams, possible futures branching out like a river delta. Most of them ended in disaster. Earth torn apart by temporal shear, the planet phased out of reality entirely, or worse. But one timeline, marked in bright green, showed success. "The good news," Wong continued, "is that it's possible. We can move the entire planet into a parallel temporal plane. The bad news is—" She paused, looking nervous. "Out with it," Mitchell demanded. "The only way it works is if we use the Imperial fleet's own energy signatures as a stabilization matrix. Their ship's positions, they're actually perfect for what we need. It's almost like they're accidentally helping us escape," Mitchell finished, a strange light in her eyes. "They're so convinced of their superiority. They've given us exactly what we need." The command center erupted in activity as new calculations were run. Cooper's team worked frantically to adjust the array settings to take advantage of this discovery. Wong's quantum computers processed the new variables, refining their predictions. Then the solar flare hit 12 hours early. Aurora Borealis and Aurora Australis exploded across the skies, more brilliant than any in recorded history. The temporal arrays, already stressed from continuous operation, began registering critical fluctuations. In Antarctica, 3 stabilization rings burned out completely. "We're losing synchronization," Cooper shouted over the alarms. "The magnetic field disruption is too strong." Mitchell made a decision that would either save humanity or doom it. "Reverse the polarity," she ordered. "Don't fight the solar storm. Use it. Feed its energy into the arrays." "That's insane," Martinez protested. "The power surge could fry every circuit on Earth. Or it could give us exactly the energy boost we need," Mitchell countered. "Sometimes the only way through a storm is to ride it." As her team scrambled to implement the changes, a priority alert flashed across all screens. The Imperial fleet was moving. Multiple ships had begun atmospheric entry, their crystalline hulls blazing like falling stars. "They're making their move," Martins announced grimly. "Whatever we're going to do, it has to be now." Mitchell looked at the countdown timer they'd set for the tribute deadline. It now seemed meaningless compared to the more immediate threats: a solar storm powerful enough to disable their equipment, and an alien fleet finally moving to stop them. She opened a channel to all project sites worldwide. "This is Dr. Mitchell. Begin final sequence. I repeat, begin final sequence. Whatever happens next, it's been an honor." The future of humanity would be decided in the next few hours, one way or another. The Imperial ships descended like avenging angels, their crystalline forms blazing with internal energy that turned night into day. Admiral Kexthor's voice boomed across every communication channel on Earth. "Your deception ends now. Surrender your temporal technology, or face immediate extinction." In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Dr. Mitchell's team watched as the first energy strikes hit military bases across the globe. The demonstrations were precise, surgical, each blast atomizing a single building, while leaving everything around it untouched. "They're showing off," General Martinez growled, watching the feeds, "proving they could kill us all without breaking a sweat." "No," Mitchell replied, her eyes fixed on the data streams. "They're afraid. Look at their attack pattern. They're targeting our power distribution networks first. They know what we're trying to do, and they're actually scared we might pull it off." The temporal arrays were operating at maximum capacity, drawing power from both the solar storm and the very attacks being launched against Earth. Each Imperial energy strike sent cascading waves through the planet's magnetic field, and Mitchell's team had found a way to harness that power. "Status report," she called out as the facility shook from a near miss. Dr. Cooper's hands flew over his controls. "Field synchronization at 87%. The solar storm is actually helping. It's creating a resonance effect that's amplifying our temporal field." An alert flashed on the main screen. A priority message from the Chinese array site. "We're under direct attack," the site commander shouted over the feed. "They're breaking through our defenses." Mitchell keyed in emergency codes. "Reroute power from the Asian grid. If we lose those arrays." She never finished the sentence. A blinding flash of light filled the command center as 3 Imperial investigators materialized directly inside their secure facility. Their crystalline forms pulsed with deadly purpose. "Fascinating," the lead investigator said, their voice making the very air vibrate. "You actually believed you could hide this from us? That you, primitives, could master temporal mechanics before us?" "Not hide," Mitchell replied, activating a hidden sequence on her console. "We just needed time to finish." The facility's lights dimmed as emergency power kicked in. On screens around the room, similar reports came in from sites worldwide. The Imperial forces had breached multiple facilities simultaneously, but they'd arrived too late to stop what was already in motion. "Cooper," Mitchell shouted, "execute Protocol Omega." The lead investigator moved to stop them, their crystalline arm transforming into what looked like a weapon. But before they could fire, something extraordinary happened. The very air began to shimmer, reality itself seeming to flex and bend. "Impossible," the investigator breathed, their form flickering with colors of shock and fear. "You've created a temporal cascade effect. The energy requirements alone should have torn your planet apart." Mitchell allowed herself a grim smile. "That's the thing about humans. We're really good at doing the impossible, especially when someone tells us we can't." The command center's main screen showed the effect spreading globally, a wave of temporal energy racing along Earth's magnetic field lines, amplified by the solar storm, and, ironically, by the very weapons the Empire had used against them. "You don't understand what you're doing," the investigator warned, their voice taking on an almost pleading tone. This level of temporal manipulation, it will change you. Your entire species. You won't just be moving through time. You'll be rewriting the very laws that govern your existence. We know, Mitchell replied, as the wave of temporal energy reached their location. That's the point. The last thing she saw before the world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of time and space was the look of utter disbelief on the crystalline faces of their would-be conquerors. Humanity had not only found a way to escape, they had found a way to evolve. As reality itself began to shift around them, Dr. Mitchell sent one final message to all Earth's temporal arrays. Hold on, everyone. We're about to find out what's on the other side of time. Time stopped, then it flowed backward, then forward, then in directions that had no names. Dr. Mitchell experienced the transformation first, being at the heart of a temporal array node. She saw her own actions from moments ago playing out in reverse, then swimming around her like fish in a cosmic ocean. Every decision she'd ever made existed simultaneously, creating a web of possibilities that she could suddenly perceive and, more incredibly, navigate. Status, she called out, her voice echoing strangely through multiple timelines. The command center existed in a state of quantum flux, with objects and people phasing through different temporal states. The field is everywhere. Cooper's reply came from both 2 seconds ago and 3 seconds in the future. The arrays are drawing power from every moment at once. The Imperial investigators stood frozen, their crystalline forms refracting light that hadn't been invented yet. Their temporal perception, advanced as it was, couldn't process what was happening. They were bound to linear time, while humanity was breaking free of it entirely. Above the Earth, the Imperial fleet launched their antimatter torpedoes in what they thought would be a killing blow. But Dr. Mitchell had been counting on this. As the weapons descended, their impossible energy signatures became the final key. Now, she commanded, her voice reaching every temporal array on the planet simultaneously, across all points in time. Initiate final phase. The antimatter detonations never reached their targets. Instead, their energy was caught in the temporal field, creating a feedback loop that amplified the effect beyond anything the project team had imagined possible. Earth began to shimmer like a mirage in the desert, reality itself bending around the planet. In cities worldwide, people experienced the change in waves. Children saw their own futures swimming before their eyes. Adults relived memories that hadn't happened yet. The very concept of now became fluid malleable. The human neural structure, one of the Imperial investigators gasped, their voice distorting through multiple temporal frequencies. It's adapting, evolving. Your entire species is. They never finished the sentence. From the Empire's perspective, Earth simply vanished. But the truth was far more complex. Earth hadn't gone anywhere. It had gone everywhere. In the command center, Dr. Mitchell watched as multiple versions of reality overlapped. She could see the Imperial fleet's confusion, their sensors unable to process a planet that existed 5 minutes in the future while simultaneously occupying a parallel temporal plane. All arrays report in, she called out, her mind adjusting to perceiving multiple time streams at once. What's our status? The reports came in from across both space and time. The Antarctic array, 3 days ago, field stable. The Pacific node, 2 hours from now, power levels nominal. The European facility, simultaneously across 7 different moments. Synchronization complete. Cooper, his consciousness now spread across several temporal states, laughed in wonder. We did it. We're not just existing in a different time. We're existing in all of them. The arrays aren't just holding us in the future. They're letting us perceive and move through time itself. Through the facility's windows, Mitchell could see the Imperial ships firing blindly into empty space, their advanced technology useless against a foe that had transcended their very understanding of reality. Earth was now both there and not there, present and absent, now and then. A quantum state that only the human mind, with its unique neural structure, could navigate. "Send word to all facilities," Mitchell ordered, her voice carrying across the new temporal network that connected all of humanity. Operation Time Shift was successful. Earth is safe. And she paused, looking at her own hand as it phased through multiple moments of existence. We've become something new, something the Empire never expected. As the Imperial fleet retreated in confusion, unable to fight an enemy they couldn't even perceive, Earth settled into its new state of existence. Humanity had not just escaped, they had evolved beyond the very constraints of time itself. 1 month after the jump, Dr. Mitchell stood in the new observatory, watching time flow like rivers through the quantum display system. Earth had changed in ways that even she hadn't anticipated. The planet now existed in what she called quantum parallel time, a state of being where past, present, and future flowed together in streams that humans could now perceive and navigate. "The children are adapting the fastest," Dr. Cooper reported, showing her the latest neural scans. "They're already learning to timeline hop without technical assistance." Yesterday, a 6-year-old in Brisbane had a conversation with her future self about what college to attend. Mitchell nodded, watching the temporal currents swirl around Earth. The planet looked like a jewel suspended in a web of light, each strand representing a different timeline. The Imperial fleet still patrolled the space where Earth had been, their sensors sweeping endlessly through normal spacetime, unable to detect a planet that existed perpendicular to their reality. "What about the temporal integration reports?" she asked, turning to the holographic data streams that now replaced traditional computers. "Fascinating results," Cooper replied, his image shifting between different temporal states as he spoke. "Our scientists can now observe historical events in real time. We've got teams studying everything from the building of the pyramids to the evolution of species. But here's the really interesting part. We can't change anything. It's like time has its own immune system." The discovery that they couldn't alter the past had come as a relief. It meant no paradoxes, no unintended consequences. They could observe, learn, and understand, but the timeline remained protected from interference. An alert chimed, and Secretary Hayes' image appeared, her form synchronized across multiple temporal states. "Doctor, we've got something you need to see. The deep space temporal arrays have picked up some interesting signals." The observatory's display shifted, showing the galaxy from their new perspective. Mitchell could see the Empire's vast territory, their ships moving through space like sluggish creatures compared to Earth's new state of existence. But there, at the edges of Imperial space, were dots of light that pulsed in a familiar pattern. "Other civilizations," Mitchell breathed. "They're learning to time shift too." Hayes nodded. "We're detecting at least 7 different species who've begun developing temporal technology. They're all at early stages, similar to where we were 6 months ago. And all of them are the Empire's supposed primitive subjects." Mitchell felt a smile spread across her face. What had started as an escape plan had become something far more significant. Earth wasn't just a refugee. It had become a pioneer, proving that the Empire's linear path of technological development wasn't the only way forward. "There's more," Cooper added, pulling up new data streams. "Our deep space scans show that the human neural pattern isn't unique by accident. We're finding similar structures in all these emerging species. It's like we were all meant to find this path." The observatory filled with light as new data poured in. They could see the Empire's ships, still powerful, but now seeming limited, bound to a single timeline, while life itself was finding ways to break free of those constraints. What do we do? Hayes asked. Do we contact these other species? Help them? Mitchell watched the temporal currents flow around Earth, each stream carrying possibilities, challenges, and opportunities. The Empire had tried to make humanity submit, but instead they'd forced them to evolve. And now that evolution was spreading. We do what humans have always done, she replied, her voice carrying through multiple time streams. We explore. We learn. We help others find their way. She turned to face her team, her form shifting through various temporal states. The Empire thought they were the peak of evolution because they mastered space. But we've learned something they never did. The real frontier is in space. She gestured to the display showing the galaxy in all its temporal glory. It's time itself, and we're just getting started. As if in response, the temporal currents around Earth pulsed brighter, carrying the promise of adventures yet to come. In dimensions the Empire had never dreamed possible.